So guys, I was already thinking about making a build video, actually for Warlocks. I'm really liking Chaos Reach in this sandbox. Just the way the super performs, how it deals with stasis, the fact when you pair it with something like geomags, you can top your super off, you can get it faster. And on top of that, even if you die mid-cast of your super, you still keep a good portion of your super. So not that many drawbacks. And there's actually been a lot more people using Chaos Reach inside of Crucible. However, I'm actually gonna take today's video and really put emphasis on what mods you should be using inside of Crucible. You see, there's a lot of people that think Charged with Light mods are something that can only be utilized inside of PvE. They completely forget to utilize it inside of PvP. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, Charged with Light and comboing certain mods together has saved me in things like Trials or Competitive or even regular Crucible multiple times. So first and foremost, let me talk about the mod synergy between Powerful Friends, Radiant Light, and how these two work together. Essentially, Radiant Light states that upon casting your super, you will cause your nearby allies to become charged with light. Now, what's so beautiful about this, at least when it comes to this build, is with something like Chaos Reach, I'm constantly casting it when combined with like tier 10 Intellect and geomags. So we're just back-to-back procking Radiant Light, giving out charges with light over and over again. On top of that, its secondary trait is plus 20 strength, which is extremely beneficial for all classes. Now, you do have to rock an arc mod in order to take advantage of that secondary trait, which is why we're rocking momentum transfer here. The beautiful thing about it, though, is that arc activation will apply to things like Powerful Friends, which that mod too requires an arc mod to be slotted, but you don't have to slot it on that same piece of armor. Once you've satisfied that arc mod requirement on one piece of armor with that associated mod, it will apply to the other mods on other pieces of armor. Now, Powerful Friends state that when you become charged with light, nearby allies also become charged with light if they are not already. Now, a lot of people just use it for the plus 20 mobility, especially my hunters. But the beautiful thing about this, especially if your teammates are rocking Powerful Friends, is when you use your super and Radiant Light procs and it gives them charged with light, it will then rebound and give you charged with light if they're rocking Powerful Friends. And the same works the opposite. If they're rocking Radiant Light, which they should be, whenever they cast their super and you're rocking Powerful Friends, you'll get 2 charges of light if you're rocking stacks on stack, which I highly advise you do despite it giving you minus 10 recovery, and you will rebound those charges of light back to them. Essentially, guys, this goes back and forth to each other. You're essentially chaining charges of light to your teammates and back to yourself again. And I can't tell you how beneficial this is. And even something simple as like taking charge, where picking up an orb of power will make you charged with light. If you're combining that with Powerful Friends, when you pick up that orb and become charged with light, they too also become charged with light. Say you want to just stack this with the Void mod Charge Harvester, which is an extremely underrated mod that states that while you are not charged with light, any kill or assist has a small cumulative chance to cause you to become charged with light. The moment that happens, in combination with Powerful Friends, boom, you just gave your teammates charged with light. I hope you're taking a drink every time we say charged with light. Now, why do we want charged with light? Essentially to take advantage of high energy fire, which is by far the most beneficial mod inside of PvP and elsewhere. I love it in PvE, but essentially it gives you a 20% flat buff to your weapon damage. And with every kill, that will burn 1 charge with light. It's so beneficial though for so many weapons, especially for things like 120 round per minute hand cannons, as that will allow you to easily get the 2-tap on Guardians, kicking that damage up from 90 per crit to a whopping 108 damage per crit. So I can't stress how important the synergy is between these mods. And if you're not using these mods, you really are throwing, man. Like, I'm not trying to say you have to use them, but if you're not using them, especially in things like Trials, you're throwing away free damage, man. Which actually takes us to the build we're utilizing here. Now, I'm gonna try this tomorrow inside of Trials. I don't know if it's gonna go well, but if you notice, we are rocking tier 10 Intellect. We get our super back 3 minutes, 48 seconds. Now, it's actually like 3 minutes, 15 seconds, somewhere around that mark, maybe even just 3 minutes, due to the fact that geomags comes with the perk Close Enough. When Chaos Reach super energy is almost full, essentially a quarter away from being full, sprinting tops it off. Also, damaging enemies with Chaos Reach extends its duration. By the way, I just want to include, yes, doing damage will retain even more of your super, and that applies even inside of PvP. Definitely more noticeable inside of PvE, as inside of PvP, you normally just like insta-melt anything that you hit with Chaos Reach. But again, like I said earlier, there's literally no drawbacks here with Chaos Reach in this sandbox, other than being a more stationary super. But it is definitely turned into one of the best panic supers in the game, especially for mouse and keyboard players. You got a guy right in front of you, he's coming at you with his super, insta-pop your Chaos Reach. Even if you trade with them, you're still gonna respawn with a good portion of your super. But let's talk about the real nasty to this whole entire thing. The reason why this may be, well, a tad bit broken. Essentially, say we're in a trials game, it's round 3, I've got a super, my Chaos Reach, I just topped it off with geomags, and instead of just running out there and engaging the team in front of us, instead, I insta-pop my super in the spot. Now, I immediately cancel, which will still retain roughly 40% of my super. Now, the reason why I insta-pop in the spawn is if I'm pairing this with Radiant Light and my teammates are rocking Powerful Friends, I just granted all of us charged with light, thus elevating the damage of our weapons. And depending on what we're using, there are weapons that will greatly take advantage of this, maybe even potentially get the one-shot kill. Again, we're gonna try this out this weekend. This is toxic. Like, I'm gonna be real with you, this is very toxic. Because you're wondering, well, Cross, what about your super? You just burnt 60% of it. Technically, though, I only burnt 35-40% of it because geomags eliminates that last 20 to 25% of your super. Therefore, my tier 10 intellect and the duration of that trials round is plenty long enough to give me my super back before the end of the round takes place. You get where I'm coming with this? You grant your team charged with light, thus allowing you all to do an extra 20% more damage, and on top of that, you get your super back before the round is over. This is not a strategy I think I'm going to use a lot inside of trials, but this is definitely a strategy I'm going to have on me handy when dealing with cheaters. When it comes to dealing with guys that every time you peek them, they instantly dome you, you know they're using aim hacks, this may actually be one of the best ways to counter them. And again, for those that are wondering about Radiant Light and the distance at which it can actually grant your teammates charges with light, 20 meters. Your teammates just have to be within 20 meters. And I'm pretty sure they don't even have to be visible. They can be on the other side of the wall. As long as they are within a 20-meter radius of you and you pop your super, they are now charged with light. Now, as a final cherry on top, I have been taking advantage of the mod Berserker. When your super ends, you gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage. The duration and strength of this bonus increases based on the number of combatants you defeat with your super. This is very much a slept-on mod. A lot of people, though, kind of have their builds and are kind of like set in a way where they don't really depend on Berserker. Not necessarily a mod I think you're going to take advantage of, overly so inside of something like Trials, considering it's a 3v3 mode, but in something like 6v6, Berserker is fantastic. That duration is extremely long depending on how many kills you get, lasting up to 30 seconds and substantially throwing that damage up. Chaos Reach may not be the best super in order to take advantage of the full effect that Berserker mod can offer, as there are other supers that can grant you more super kills. But where Chaos Reach and Geomags lacks in quality, they by far make up for it with quantity by just allowing you to get super after super, thus granting you that Berserk buff that you can easily chain into Charge with Light mods. So guys, that is essentially what we've been utilizing for the past few days. It's got some tweaking, and I really don't know the practicality behind it, whether or not it's actually going to serve a great purpose inside of Trials. Is it really going to clutch things up? Is Chaos Reach as good as I'm thinking it is? Has it actually been stealth buffed? I don't think it has. I think it's just been slept on. And in this sandbox, where Stasis is so powerful, any super that grants you some level of distance to keep you from getting frozen is a good super. Coda the Missile used to be one of my favorite supers, and it still is, but I can still get frozen as I come into contact with my opponent, which is very demoralizing, whereas something like Chaos Reach allows me to keep my distance, still instant melt, and get the shutdown, which to me makes this super, honestly, the best super to counter Stasis. There's a few other supers that are pretty good. A lot of people are gonna ask, what about hammers? It still takes a couple hammers to take on a Stasis super. Same with Golden Gun. It still takes a couple Golden Gun shots unless you're rocking like Bottom Tree Goldie and you land a headshot. But when it comes to just easily shutting down other supers, I really think Chaos Reach is being slept on here. On top of that, with the chaining capabilities with Charge with Light, you're acting as one of the best support players. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.